You think the biggest secrets in the White House are hidden in classified documents? Briefing books? You're wrong. The real secrets? They're in the walls. They're in the cold spots on the grand staircase. They're standing at the foot of your bed in the middle of the night. We were told not to talk. We were told to forget what we saw. But we can't. For over 200 years, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has been the most powerful address on Earth. It's a symbol of democracy, stability, and rational thought. But what if I told you that behind that famous facade, there's another story? One that's whispered in the corridors, and only confessed decades later in memoirs. A story that's far more unsettling. The White House isn't just a home for presidents. It's a house of secrets, shadows, and, yes, spirits. First ladies, foreign leaders, and high-ranking military aides have all reported bone-chilling encounters with the unexplained. For decades, staff have been sworn to secrecy, their experiences brushed off as simple folklore, their silence a non-negotiable condition of their employment. But now, former insiders are finally breaking that silence. They're revealing a quiet but constant cover-up, a deliberate effort to bury the terrifying truth of what really haunts America's seat of power. The stories of ghosts in the White House are practically as old as the building itself, and the sheer number of accounts, from some of the most credible witnesses imaginable, is staggering. The most famous spectral resident is, without a doubt, President Abraham Lincoln. His presence is so deeply felt, it's basically become an unofficial feature of the House. First Lady Grace Coolidge was the first to publicly admit she'd seen Lincoln's tall, sorrowful figure staring out a window of the Yellow Oval Room. During World War II, Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands was staying as a guest when she was woken by a knock on her bedroom door. When she opened it, she was met by the apparition of Lincoln himself, causing her to faint on the spot. Maybe the most famous run-in involved British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. While staying in the Lincoln bedroom, Churchill had just gotten out of the bath, cigar in hand, only to see Lincoln leaning against the fireplace mantel. Churchill, never one to be easily rattled, supposedly quipped, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage." The spirit reportedly smiled and then vanished into thin air. But Lincoln's not the only president who forgot to leave. The ghost of Abigail Adams, the second First Lady, is often sensed in the East Room, where she used to hang her laundry. Staff have reported the distinct smell of wet clothes and lavender for over a century. The furious, deep laugh of Andrew Jackson is said to echo from the Rose Room, a space he once lived in. Mary Todd Lincoln herself swore she heard him stomping and cursing. And then there are the others. Thomas Jefferson heard playing his violin in the Yellow Oval Room. Dolly Madison still protecting the rose garden she planted. And even the disembodied voice of David Burns, the man who owned the land before the White House was built, still claiming it as his. Willie Lincoln, the president's young son, who died of typhoid right there in the house, has also been seen by staff. A little boy still playing in the halls of power. So, with all these stories, from some pretty credible people, you have to wonder, why isn't this common knowledge? The answer is a kind of unspoken rule, an unofficial policy of silence that started more than 100 years ago. Back in 1911, during the Taft administration, the household staff were terrified by a new presence they called the Thing. They reported feeling a bizarre pressure on their shoulders, as if a teenage boy were leaning over to watch them work. The stories became so widespread that President Taft, terrified of a press scandal, flew into what his aide called a towering rage. He strictly forbade any staff member from ever speaking about the ghost, an early, crystal-clear example of an official suppression of the paranormal. This created a culture of secrecy that's still in place today. New staff learn fast. What you see, what you hear, you don't talk about it. You ignore it. It just becomes part of the job. While there's no formal written rule book for reporting a ghost, insiders say an internal code was developed. It's a way to log events without ever admitting what they really are. A chilling encounter becomes an unresolved sensory event. A disembodied voice is just an anomalous environmental disturbance. This sanitized language lets them record what happened, but officially deny it, burying the truth in maintenance logs and security reports that never get out. And this isn't just about avoiding a few embarrassing headlines. This is about control. Controlling the story, controlling history, and maybe even controlling reality itself. And if you think these are just spooky old stories from 100 years ago, think again. The phenomena have continued, troubling even the most recent residents. During the Reagan administration, the family's dog Rex would bark like crazy at the entrance to the Lincoln bedroom and absolutely refuse to go inside. Reagan's own daughter and her husband reported seeing a see-through figure in that same room on more than one occasion. Decades later, President George W. Bush's twin daughters, Jenna and Barbara, had their own frightening experiences. They reported waking up in the middle of the night to the very clear sound of 1920s piano music coming from their bedroom fireplace. It was so real, they thought it was a prank. A week later, it happened again, but this time, it was opera music. When they brought it up to a staff member, he wasn't surprised at all. He just replied, "Jenna, you wouldn't believe what I've heard. Even the Obamas weren't safe."
Michelle Obama admitted that she and the president would sometimes hear strange noises in the hallway at night. On other occasions, members of the family felt a weird sensation, like something was gnawing on their feet while they were in bed.
And here's the kicker for all of these modern stories. They only came out after the families were long gone from the White House. The unspoken rule holds. While you're there, you do not speak of it. Look, it's easy to write these off as just ghost stories. But when presidents, prime ministers, and first ladies are all telling the same tales across different centuries, doesn't that demand a closer look? What do you think is really being hidden inside the White House walls? Let us know your theories in the comments below. Think about it. The idea of ghosts is creepy, sure, but the real horror of the White House story isn't the spirits themselves. It's the cover-up. It's that slow, chilling realization that the very institution meant to represent truth might be actively hiding a fundamental piece of reality from everyone. Take the massive renovation of the White House under President Harry S. Truman. The official story is that the building was structurally unsound, about to collapse, and that was true. But what often gets left out of the history books is the intensity of the paranormal activity Truman himself was experiencing. In letters to his wife, he wrote, "The damn place is haunted, sure as shootin'." He described hearing phantom footsteps and knocks in the dead of night when the Secret Service swore no one was there. So was gutting the entire building down to its bare foundations really just about structural problems? Or was it also a desperate, large-scale attempt to cleanse the building, to hit the reset button on whatever energy had become too active to ignore? This pattern of reacting to the paranormal under the guise of something else seems to continue. In 1974 and again in 1994, major security breaches involving helicopters happened on the White House grounds. The official reports, of course, focus on the pilots and security failures. But what they don't mention is that on both of those days, multiple witnesses reported seeing the distinct apparition of Abigail Adams. Security was tightened, but was it just about stopping future physical threats? Or was it also about tightening the seal on a building that seems to have a weak barrier with the other side?